want us to base anything on Georgia at all. Please, Jesus, not Georgia. Okay, because Georgia purged 87,000.
Will the gentlewoman yield?
I
think Georgia matters.
I will not yield. I am reclaiming my time. The reality is that the Republicans talk a lot. They talk a big game, but I need people to pay attention to what the Republicans do. And when it comes to lawlessness, they are all for it so long as it's one of their little friends. But when it comes down to black and brown, which we've already talked about, the city of D.C. having so many black folk, there is a problem.
Congress is not specific. Excuse me.
Thank you. My time. No, ma'am, it's my time. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Katzen,
so you are not
in your
interested in my views.
It is my time. Thank you. Do you disagree that this was an overreach?
I disagree that
Ms.
you're
Katzen, my time
casting
is
aspersions on
Mr. Chairman, I
me
yield.
or my...
Thank you.
First of all, let me apologize because that was uncalled for. So let me do what she would never do, which is to be an adult in this room or in this chamber. So let me start there. Our definition of common sense is one that doesn't keep us in the pockets of corporations, but keeps us in the pockets of the people. Because what I'm trying to do is save lives. My job isn't here to make sure that I'm pushing the bottom line for some corporation, but it's to make sure that the people that put me into this seat, which were actual people, individuals, to make sure that I can save lives.
Do you believe that individuals from these countries and illegal aliens in general should be allowed to exploit the medical system that you help oversee?
Again, I'm here to talk about the HHS's proposed rule to extend benefits to DACA recipients to ensure that their treatment is in line with other deferred action recipients.
So you can't answer the question. Are you aware that China does not like the United States and that has engaged in espionage activities against the United States?
I don't have any personal professional knowledge of that.
Okay, well, I suggest you read Breitbart.
It was suggested that you should read Breitbart, and I couldn't let it go. And so just for the general public, because I don't want anybody to believe that that's a good idea, I just got on Google, which if you have a cell phone, we can all do that. Breitbart News Network is an American far-right syndicated news, opinion, and commentary website founded mid-2007 by American conservative commentator Andrew Breitbart. Breitbart News content has been described as misogynistic, xenophobic, and racist by academics and journalists. So I don't know that that's where I want anybody to take their cues from, especially when they're trying to run this country. I just want to talk about my state really quickly, since we're talking about the border and how my colleagues have been down there once or twice, and so they feel like they know everything that happens at my border because they go on a little field trip. I appreciate what you do because you are taking a multifaceted look. You're looking at the criminal aspect. You're looking at not just cash, but you're looking at crypto. You're also looking at more than one country, more than just Mexico. You're looking to try to solve the solutions while also making sure that those that are addicted get treatment instead of put into jail cells. And so I appreciate the work that you do. I hope that my colleagues understand that it's not so simple as let's just blame the border and we'll fix all the problems. It's so weird because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle wanted to call this hearing, this is not our first, it's not our second. I've actually lost count myself of how many IRS hearings we're having, and they seemingly feel like they can fix your very complicated issues. But somehow they aren't good at simple math that would get them to a speaker, you know, right. So we've been 3 weeks without one. When we talk about protecting women, what we've seen is, say, in the state of Ohio was one of the most recent states when their lawmakers didn't have the courage to do what they needed to do because, of course, we believe in gerrymandering. And because we believe in gerrymandering in this...
Point of order. I moved
Please stop my time.
I moved to strike her words, deplorable states.
That's not a point of order. Let the gentlelady proceed.
The committee will suspend. Whoa, 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 whoa. The committee will suspend. So I'm prepared to rule this is not a statement, a deplorable state is not a statement against a person, or it is not engaging in personalities. So I'll continue and you can reclaim your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We know that our colleagues across the aisle are desperate to find some actual evidence of wrongdoing to justify their failed impeachment inquiry. But even under these desperate circumstances, I am still shocked and disappointed that you have targeted someone grieving from the horrific attack of October 7th for your impeachment investigation.
Well, I'm somewhat fascinated by my colleague on the other side of the aisle talking about evidence that doesn't exist. While I sat in a room during the last administration, and they literally made up evidence to impeach a president, evidence that didn't exist or supported lies that do exist to impeach a president. And so his words fall a little hollow at this moment.
The only thing that my colleague heard was about made-up evidence as it relates to the former president, the twice impeached, 91 indicted count former president who's currently sitting in a fraud trial, who's also been found liable of sexual assault. The only thing that he heard was this bit about made-up evidence. And so he says, well, the Democrats didn't have the right to do what they did when they impeached the president. I disagree. And it looks like at least 4 grand juries feel like they've got some evidence, or maybe that's made up as well. So let's talk about my state, because we always got good stuff coming out of Texas. Unfortunately, my state decided that it didn't want to be a part of the overall national grid, because my state did not want to deal with all of the quote unquote red tape. The cost of that was lives. So we had this winter storm, and here it was, I was freshly being sworn into the Texas House, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do, because I started getting calls, because there is this thing called climate change. Hello, nobody's in the chamber on the other side. But climate change is this real thing. And so in Texas, we had this terrible storm that took place, and even though we are an energy capital, not just in this country, but in the world, for clean and dirty energy, unfortunately, we couldn't keep our own lights on. And it was all because they wanted to avoid red tape. You know what the cost of that was? It was human lives. And I think that that's what's being lost. You know what happened in Palestine or East Palestine? The cost was human lives. Unfortunately, seemingly, some people don't want to consider human lives as an actual cost. The only cost that they ever talk about is dollars. Well, let me be clear. I'm not here because of corporate dollars. I'm here because of people. I am so excited that my colleagues across the aisle care about sexual abuse, considering that the front runner right now for presidency is kind of just been found liable of sexual abuse. So I'm excited, because this may mean that finally some folk will back off from supporting him, because we don't support sexual abusers in this chamber. So I'm happy about this. Republicans want to talk about crime and violence, but they don't want to admit their role in this crisis. The fact is that they still allow assault weapons in the hands of radical right extremists, which have forced families visiting a mall in my state of Texas to leave a mall with nothing more than trauma, hurt, and despair, as a neo-Nazi terrorized them. And yet, what did they have in their hand? Another AR-15. But we don't want to have a conversation about that. So if we're going to talk about crime and the reasons for the increase in them, we've got to talk about these root causes. The fact is, my Republican colleagues want to talk about keeping D.C. streets crime-free. They can't even keep the halls of Congress crime-free, because we gonna talk about this, because I got 24 seconds. My freshman colleague has just been indicted on 13 felony counts, right? But have they exhibited any courage to say, you know what, we will disallow this in our body. We will make sure that we expel this individual. They have not. So what I don't want to hear is that they care about crime, because if they did, they would start by cleaning up our own house and mind our own business instead of coming after D.C. So thank you so much for your time.
Now, would you agree that the Biden administration has a pattern of purposefully misinterpreting the law in order to carry out their political agenda?
No, ma'am. I think, in fact, that the law keeps changing, and the Supreme Court had a very hard time
I haven't seen that law change here in Congress. So this was the intent of the Clean Water Act, and I have not seen that change. That sounds like a lot of red tape to me.
Excuse me.
Do you disagree?
I really take that as a personal
Do you
assumption.
disagree?
My home.
Do you disagree that this was an overreach?
I disagree that
Ms.
you're
Katzen, my time
casting
has expired.
aspersions on
Mr. Chairman, I
me
yield.
or my...
Thank you.
This committee runs my pressure up I do come prepared to committee, and then there's always somebody from this side that does something ridiculous that throws me all the way off. So, oh, Jesus. Okay, so this is where we're going to start, Ms. Kaskin. First of all, let me apologize because that was uncalled for. So let me do what she would never do, which is to be an adult in this room or in this chamber. So let me start there. I'm also going to start with some nonsense that she was trying to spew. And unlike Ms. Boebert, I am legally trained, and I've passed a few bar exams. And I also legislated before I got here. I hail from the great state of Texas. And what's interesting to me is we always want to talk about privileges and compare what is required for a privilege versus comparing what is required for a constitutionally protected right under our federal constitution. And it's interesting that in this chamber, we love to talk about the Second Amendment and we want to make sure that everyone has guns. And we only have one amendment in our Constitution that deals with guns, and it's the Second Amendment. And Professor Weiser, you were just about to say we have multiple provisions, so you were messing up my test a little bit. So I'm not going to let you answer the question. I'm going to go down here to these experts. Let's start and go the other way. Do we know how many amendments actually address voting in our Constitution?
Well, it depends how you count them, but you could say 3, 5th,
Okay.
14th, 15th,
Okay. Mr. Spees?
plus the DC amendments.
And maybe first.
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay, Professor, go ahead and break it down.
I believe it's 6.
There we go. There we go. So we got the 14th, we got the 15th, 17th. Wait a minute, did I mess up? 19th, 24th, and 26th. There we go. All right, so we have 6 amendments.
23rd.
And every time we dealt with an amendment dealing with voting, we were expanding upon access. Is that not correct?
That is correct. That is the history of this country. Expand.
Okay. The history is to expand, but obviously there are some folk that want to rewrite history and make sure we go back in time. So are you familiar with the fact that there are black folk that died in this country to make sure that black folk had access to the ballot box?
Yes, that is correct.
Are you also familiar with the fact that probably around 1913 or sometime around there was maybe a women's suffrage march?
Yes, yes.
And that was a fight, again, for women to have access to the ballot box, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so we have had throughout history these fights to make sure that everyone is accessing the ballot box, but seemingly when it comes down to, say, guns in this country, which are the #1 killer of children in this country, we haven't had half as many hearings about guns as we've had on voting rights. And every time we seemingly have a hearing on voting rights, we talking about the fact that people are cheating. So let's talk about who's cheating. I got a few articles. Are you familiar with the fact that there was recently a settlement with this little news company called Fox News?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That was for about $780-something million. Was it because they were lying about the elections?
Yes, it was for a...
Okay, there we go. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to keep going. There also was this article, because I don't want us to base anything on Georgia at all. Please, Jesus, not Georgia. Okay, because Georgia purged 87,000...
Will the gentlewoman yield?
I
think Georgia matters.
I will not yield. I am reclaiming my time. All right, so there were 87,000 people that were purged that were legitimate voters. So, no, we don't want to copy off of Georgia. Also, another GOP voter admits he committed fraud. Another one in Pennsylvania, man who admits he voted for Trump with his dead mom's name because he listened to too much propaganda.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentlelady from the state of Georgia, Ms. Green, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Expanding benefits in this way would not deter illegal immigration. In fact, it encourages more individuals to take the dangerous trek across our borders illegally. And to put the cost of illegal immigration into perspective, illegal immigration has a net cost of approximately $151 billion per year. This cost is not incurred by illegal aliens that are coming to the United States, but instead paid for by hardworking Americans, while those breaking the law have zero financial accountability. And let's be clear, whenever they show pictures of DACA recipients, they typically tend to show Hispanic children, when in actuality it's more than just the Hispanic demographic. So I guess the question for you would be, you're in charge of a program that's costing American taxpayers millions and billions of dollars, and yet you're sitting here refusing to answer questions about whether or not that's fair or there's certain terminology being used for these programs. I guess my suggestion to you would be is that our rules that we have in place are in place for a reason.
DACA is political, is what I heard just now. Just to be clear, you've testified that DACA recipients are considered to be lawfully present, correct?
That's correct. I've said that under the Department of Homeland Security's longstanding definition, DACA recipients are considered lawfully present.
Right, they're not considered illegals, they're considered to be lawfully present. But lawfully present doesn't mean that you have the right to vote, correct?
I would defer to my
well, I'll give it to you. Only U.S. citizens can vote. And so therefore, this idea that it's political or as if the Biden administration is about to rack up some votes is just another falsehood. In fact, all we continue to get is half-baked ideas and half-baked or half-lies or half-truths, whichever way you want to look at it. Let's talk about the half-baked ideas first, though. My colleague, Ms. Lee, brought up the fact that we're talking about expanding access to pregnant women and children, correct?
in the Medicaid program, yes.
Okay, and this is only in states that have extended Medicaid, correct?
This is under the proposal, this would impact the 35, roughly 35 states who have chosen the option to cover lawfully residing pregnant individuals as well as children.
Okay, so we're talking about pregnant women, and have you heard of the Dobbs decision?
I have.
Okay, all right, so we have a party that says, seemingly, what would Jesus do? Seemingly, that's how they govern themselves. And so they've decided that all women should just bear all the children and not have any rights to decide what they're going to do. And so even under this set of circumstances, they think that it's great that all women should just be pregnant, but they don't want them to have any access to health care. That sounds like a half-baked idea to me, to say that forget life when it comes to, say, the life of the mother, because that's a real thing. Because if you have health care, and I don't know how deeply you've delved into this, but we have been talking, and when I say we, I mean the Democrats, have been talking about the fact that we have a terrible maternal mortality rate in this country. And when you start talking about people of color or people of lower socioeconomic means, that rate goes up even more astronomically. And so the idea that people are already dying, let me be clear. Are there people that tend to be at a higher risk when they don't have access to health care when they're pregnant?
Yes, it is our belief that being insured leads to better health outcomes.
Thank you. Let's also just talk about these half-truths. Really, they're just full lies. I was trying to be nice. The reality is that they're trying to make this into the immigration boogeyman that they always talk about, yet we've yet to have a bill on the floor that has been proposed in the form of a policy around immigration. Instead, what they want to do is continue to treat immigrants as if they are the big, bad boogeyman. And so we're sitting here and we're talking about a program, and you've remained composed. So let me compliment you for that. Because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle continue to ask you about the border. What in this bill or this policy, this rule change, what in this rule change has anything to do with the border? Just give me one thing that it has to do with the border. One. Okay, exactly. It doesn't, right? It doesn't. But for some reason, they believe if they say it, that it's true. I would love to live in a world where whatever I say somehow is true. But the reality is that if they want immigration reform, they are in control of the House and they can put a bill on the floor. But they don't want to do that because they want to continue to say that immigrants are the big bad boogeyman. Thank you for your service. This has nothing to do with immigration. It has everything to do with being good citizens and good lawmakers and good public servants who actually just give a darn about people. Thank you. I live in this state. I have also legislated specifically in this state, the state of Texas. And recently, my governor, who seemingly does nothing but atrocious things, decided that he was going to order that migrants, and this doesn't say it, but specifically the headlines that we saw were children as well as pregnant mothers, be pushed back into the Rio Grande. Currently, the DOJ is suing my governor because he decided that he wanted to use razor wire. This is not fixing fentanyl, as far as I'm concerned. Because you're the expert, do you believe that razor wire or ordering that women and pregnant mothers and children be pushed into the water, do you believe that that's fixing our fentanyl crisis?
Thank you, Congressman, for that question. I would say majority of the fentanyl is coming through the ports of entry, and our focus should be where the problem is predominantly.
Thank you so much. You can go ahead. And when you talk about ports of entry, I want to be clear, because sometimes in this chamber it seems like we only have one border and only one way to get into the United States, and somehow it's through Mexico. I just want to be clear. There's a northern border. There's also plains. Are you of the impression that drugs only come from Mexico?
Thank you, Congressman. Oftentimes, machinery parts like pill presser parts, dye-mold parts, they will come through other countries to the United States and smuggled southwards to be built into pill pressers. So there's the business traffic goes in all directions and across all ways in order to produce the final product.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, because I think we need to go back to step one in this process. You don't know it, but I practiced criminal law for almost 17 years in multiple states and on the federal level. I was on the defense side, so I dealt with people that were arrested for drug crimes. One of the things that I want to talk about is the difference in fentanyl and, say, cocaine. Cocaine is typically not prescribed by somebody's doctor, but it's my understanding that most people that are struggling with fentanyl are people that have become sometimes addicted to opioids because they were prescribed opioids. And it may have been for a car wreck. I also did those as well. Have a back issue. And ultimately, the doctor takes you off, but because of the addictive nature, you're going out and you're trying to get it wherever you can. And so it sounds like we have a demand problem, number one. Would you agree with me that if we could reduce demand, then maybe people wouldn't be looking to supply where there was no demand?
I think it's both sides. And I think, as you very accurately said, that a lot of people, I have prescribed people and who've gone on the streets and then ended up in heroin and fentanyl as well. So I have a really direct experience with some of that work as well.
Absolutely. And so also, one of the things that is so frustrating to me is that we don't treat this as something that is multifaceted. You talked about it's not just the southern border. It's all things connected. It's not just saying, that the cartels are the problem, which I think we can all agree. That is one thing that we can all agree upon. The cartels are a problem for a lot of different reasons, and it's not just fentanyl. But one of the things that you talked about was locals. I believe that the National Drug Control Strategy notes that local problems need local solutions. Is that correct?
Yes, Congressman.
And ONDCP is responsible for administering a grant program specifically focused on local solutions, the Drug-Free Communities Support Program. Correct?
Correct.
All right. And I'm going to agree with you. As somebody who has had to deal with multiple clients that have been addicted, and as someone who is a black woman in this country, the 94 crime bill was a failure. And seemingly the only solutions that we ever have is more and more incarceration. The last thing that I'll say is, in a very bipartisan way, I have introduced the STRIP Act, and that is to make sure that these fentanyl testing strips can get to the people that need them, so that even if they're struggling with addiction, they have the ability to test and to determine whether or not this odorless, this tasteless thing is actually laced within the product that they receive. Would you agree with me, things that such as testing strips are invaluable to helping us fight this war?
Yes, Congressman, we will happy to work with you on that as well.
Thank you. With that, I'll you back. I'm going to pick up right where Representative Connolly left off. Out of curiosity, do either one of you know the definition of insanity?
I think you're referring to doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Oh, okay. That's exactly what I was referring to. And it sounds like that is what this party is good at. But I want to talk about the theme of the day. Commissioner, you have said over and over and over the word complicated. I was not keeping a tally, but you said it a lot. So I want to work with this word a little bit. I have a list of items. I would like for you to let me know if you believe they are complicated or not. Tax returns.
Complicated.
Operating the IRS without proper investment.
Complicated.
Recruiting workers in this antagonistic environment.
Complicated.
Auditing millionaires and billionaires.
Complicated.
Okay, so it sounds like you've got a complicated job.
I do.
And it also sounds like you have to know something about math. My colleague brought that up as well. It sounds like you need to be at least somewhat decent at counting to be with the IRS. Yes?
Yes.
You'd agree? Okay.
I'd agree.
Let me ask you another question that may be another one of these when the math ain't math in situations. There was a looming government shutdown a few weeks ago. And interestingly enough, when I do the math, approximately a little bit more than 60% of the people that sit on this committee actually voted to shut us down. Now, out of curiosity, for everyone that claims to care about their constituents, do you think it's easier or more difficult to operate as the IRS when, say, there's a shutdown?
It is very disruptive to our operations.
Very disruptive. Let me give you another number that is very concerning to me. That number is 24. 24 represents the number of days that we have before the continuing resolution that 60% of, and when I say my colleagues, I'm talking about across the aisle, not on this side. We were about at 100%. Actually, we were 100% on this committee that voted to make sure that the government did not shut down. But if in 24 days, we don't have a speaker because they can't figure out their math, and we shut down, is that going to help you answer more phone calls or less phone calls?
A lot less.
Oh, okay. All right. So it sounds like we have a lot of performative politics that is taking place because yet another number that was mentioned, and I believe you brought this number up, was $540 billion. You also talked about appropriations, and you talked about the fact, and I want to be clear about this $540 billion. This $540 billion is a net number, correct? This is not a net zero, like it's going to cost $540 to go get it, and that's how much we're going to get. We're talking about netting $540 billion, correct?
$540 billion. I would say we're on track under current course and speed to get about 70 back, so our hope is we'll be at 470. But yeah, it's 470 billion, which is what's owed versus what's paid.
Okay, very good. How is it that the American people should believe that the majority party has the ability to solve your complex issues when, number one, they don't pay attention to history, which was defunding this organization has not helped their constituents, but hurt their constituents. And let me add to that. The last time I checked, America is growing. So you were defunding your organization as we were ending up with more people, which means that you have more work, correct?
Correct. More population, more filers, more changes to the tax code, and more complexity in how the economy operates. 2010, when our budget reduction started, we never heard of PayPal, Venmo, all these, payment platforms. The gig economy changes, and it's great, but we have to invest and be ready to be effective tax administrators as the world changes. That's why it's important to keep our funding at pace.
I agree, and as the child of an IRS worker, I absolutely want to thank you for what you do. And obviously, I always must send love to my mama. I thank her for what she does for the American people as well. I'll yield back. Okay. All right. So most everyone up here on the other side of the aisle has endorsed a person that has been found liable for sexual abuse of women to be our president of the United States. But we are going to talk about how this party is going to protect women. Protecting women, what exactly does that mean? Are we going to talk about sexual abuse? Because we can get into it, because we do have some real conversations that we can have about it. Considering the fact that we're currently in the middle of, say, a war, there's been allegations of rape being used in war. Seems like maybe we could have a few conversations about what it would look like to prevent that, what it would look like to maybe go and get those hostages out, maybe go and send some money to our allies. It looks like we could do something of value, but let me tell you, this session, we have set so many good records. One of those records was we've had a record number of people that have retired or announced their retirements in the month of November from the House. And from everything that I hear, it's because this body has become completely unserious. But we do have serious issues, especially when it comes to women. So let's talk about what it looks like to protect women in this country. When lawmakers like this are so far out of touch with what women need, we see states pushing back, at least states that will allow you to push back. I'm from the state of Texas, and of course, they don't want you to ever have an opportunity to raise your voice in the state of Texas. In fact, Ms. Perry, I know your organization, the Heritage Foundation, loves Texas. Ooh, they love Texas. They always sending us some nonsense bills that somehow set this country on the wrong trajectory. They send them to Texas. They send them to Florida. Every deplorable state that we can think about, they usually coming out of y'all's think tank. So we saw recently what the state of Ohio did when their lawmakers refused to listen to them. We also have seen what the state of Kansas decided to do. When it comes to protecting women, it seems like the only people that are standing up for women on an everyday basis are the people themselves, because they're elected officials that somehow get into these positions in a gerrymandered way. They don't seem to represent the interest of the people. But let me talk to you about something that is very real in this country, and that is unhoused people. And I'm sure that while we don't have an expert on the matter here, many of you may not recognize that the majority of the youth that are actually unhoused in this country are members of the LGBTQIA community. When we look at mental health issues in this country, if we care, because I done heard terms that I never thought I hear certain people say up in here. We done heard about equality. We done heard about regressiveness. We've heard about civil rights. I can't get the Voting Rights Act passed. We've heard we need to follow the science. Are you kidding me? When we're sitting up here talking about anti-vaccine and all this nonsense. But let me tell you about somebody that I love very dearly, who has struggled and suffered because of the ignorance that continues to be perpetuated, which is not what is in the will of the people. Young Libby, who has been my constituent for far too long and gone through too much in the state of Texas. At the age of 7, Libby started testifying down at the state house about the bathroom bill. I think that was a Heritage Foundation situation as well. Started testifying at the age of 7 about how it made her feel. Then ultimately, Libby has been testifying, and at this point, Libby is 13 years old. And I'm gonna tell you something. I know that it was characterized as, oh, this is the cool thing to do, and maybe people are encouraged to be trans, and so they don't want to speak out. And now that it is not the easy thing to do. When you have to sit here and prove your personhood every single time that you're walking around. You got people that feel away because they losing in the sport. And listen, the trans person, it don't sound like even came in first from what I could tell. But nevertheless, I think we need to focus on real things that are real issues as it relates to women. If you care about women, let's get the ERA passed so we can have equal rights. Let's make sure that we fully fund access to reproductive health. Let's make sure that we are protecting those that are being raped, because they're being raped in this country as well as abroad. And this party has decided that even if you're raped and you're a child, guess what? You shouldn't have access to reproductive health care. That is not protecting women, and I will yield.